All right, welcome back to Midwest Small Town. And I'll tell you what, we're going to get right to it today. All right, honest question to kick things off. What the heck is a small town anyway? Because if you ask 10 people, you're going to get 10 very confident, by the way, and very different answers. Let's get into it. Okay, we're going to talk all about small towns today. I'm going to actually point out a couple of places that I've been here in the last week or two. Just kind of talk about those towns, talk about places that we're going, places that are on our bucket list, and of course, some things that are happening with our channel. So as you may or may not know, we have a couple of different channels and a couple different podcasts, and we are merging them all together with this one. So we have a YouTube channel, Midwest Small Town. Go check that out. I have videos running at least weekly. I may go bi-weekly on that or a couple times weekly. We'll see. We're just for sure going to do at least on Thursdays for the videos. And then we're going to release our podcast once a week on Sunday nights, releasing, of course, by Monday for sure. And so we have plenty of content coming, a video channel, a podcast. And like I said before, I had, of course, an old channel and an old podcast, Midwest Ghost Town. So I used to cover abandoned places as well and places known as ghost towns. And we'll get into all of this as well, but this is coming to Midwest Small Town now, simply because there are a lot of really, and when I say this, I'm not just saying it just because my own personal love and my own channel, really cool small places.
Fabulous.
But the question really comes up, what's the definition of that? What is a small town anyways? And I've had a couple people reach out to me, because I might have been in a place that's a little larger, and that's not what I consider small. I consider small, less than 10,000. And that came from a good buddy of mine and his channel, Backroads and Backwaters. You should check his channel out, by the way, on YouTube. He is a shanty boat traveler, adventurer, if you will. So he lives on a boat on the river. Right? Think of the motivational speaker. I live on a boat down by the river. And he is awesome. I love his adventures. We have developed an amazing friendship, just kind of talking, supporting him in what he's doing. And he came out and he said, I consider a town that's a small town anyway, under 10,000. That makes a lot of sense. It does. Some folks say this. They say, under 5,000 people. Others say, and I've heard this many times, if it has a Walmart, it's not a small town. Now, I can get their argument on that. I really can. And there's always that one guy who goes, well, I'm from a real small town. And you just know you're about to get humbled. So today we're breaking it down Midwest style and figuring out what actually makes a town small. So let's get this out of the way right now. A small town is not, in my opinion, defined by population, because I've been to towns with 10,000 people that felt pretty tiny. And I've been with inside towns and around towns with 800 people that somehow felt like a pretty major metro. They have a lot going on for a town under 1,000. In the Midwest, a town becomes small the moment someone says, you don't need a GPS just to take a left by the old elevator. That's all you got to do. If the directions include the old anything, in my opinion, you might be living in a small town. Especially if they say, hey, that building that burned down in 1994, you might live in a small town, or a business that might be something else, right? So congratulations, you're in a small town for sure. Now, in a small town, people might not know you, but they definitely know your last name. I remember when I was a kid, right? They might say, oh, you're a Johnson? Are you related to the Johnsons over by the co-op? No? Huh. Thought you might be. And somehow they'll still know where you went to school, who you were dating, and that thing you did in high school that you were positive that no one saw. Now, privacy does exist in small towns. It's just on delay. You're not going to hear about it today, but you'll hear about it the next time you're buying milk at the grocery store. Another sign you're in a small town, businesses aren't just businesses. They're landmarks. Hey, it's not turn left on the County Road 7. It's turn where the old grocery store used to be, then past Jim's shop, Not the new gym shop, but the old gym shop. And then the business lineup is always elite Midwest. One gas station, one bar, okay, maybe 3 bars, one restaurant with a menu that hasn't changed since Reagan, and one place nobody's sure how it even started, how it opened. By the way, going back to that whole thing about one restaurant with a menu.
It's story time.
In a little town called Germantown, Iowa, northwest Iowa, some might even consider it a ghost town, right? They have the old Lutheran church, which is still there, the cemetery, and across the street, they have the bar. And people come from all over to this place. My uncle and aunt started this place. It used to be called Lloyd's of Germantown. Now I believe it's called the Hideout or the Hideaway. I gotta go look and see for sure. They serve, to this day, the roasted chicken, fried chicken that my aunt used to make. It's her recipe to this day, and people will come from all over. You have to, when you order, you have to order an entire chicken. You can't just do, I want to have 3 or 2 legs and a breast, or I want to have a thigh. So you have to order it by the whole chicken. And of course, they fry or roast the whole thing up, and they serve it on a cookie sheet, right? Or at least a sheet. And there it is, right in front of you in a big pile. There's your fried chicken. And people come from all over for that. They love it. And my uncle started something with this, that once you finished the chicken, you get a shot of peppermint schnapps. Now, my uncle, as my aunt would say, I was there, last year, I sat down at her place in Polina, Iowa, another small town. And as we were talking about and reminiscing, remembering the days when they owned the bar, and you'd get bar food, but really, really good stuff, she said, well, I did all the work. I'm like, really? Your uncle owned the bar, but I did all the work. I was in the kitchen making the chicken that people loved. And there's Lloyd. He's sitting down there schmoozing with the guys at the bar, giving them free drinks. But then I told her, I go, there's this thing that I say often. I call it the Cheers effect, right? Do you remember that show, the sitcom back in the 80s, Cheers, where everyone wanted to go, where everyone knew your name? That's what I call the Cheers effect. Of course, they're coming back to that place. They felt a sense of belonging there. It wasn't just because my uncle gave them a free drink now and then. They would gladly buy more drinks. They showed up because this was a place that they could identify. This is a place that they felt home, away from home. And that's what I call the Cheers effect. They wanted to go to a place where everyone knew their name, even if it was in small town Iowa. So there is a business lineup in some of these small Midwest towns. Like I said, the one gas station, the one bar, the one restaurant. And then you get that one place that nobody's sure even how it stays open. And if a chain restaurant moves in, that's news for years. Did you hear? We're getting a Subway. Yeah, everyone heard. There was a meeting about it. And in a small town, the school isn't just a school. It's the town's personality. Sports schedules dictate life. Gymnasiums double as concert halls. Meeting rooms, emergency shelters, and school events, they're town events. You could be in kindergarten and somehow the bleachers are full. You look up and you think, why is the mayor here? Why is the guy from the feed store here? And why does everyone care how I play the triangle and band? Those are all things that we can think about and identify with a small town. In a Midwest small town, weather isn't just the weather, it's a shared experience. Snowstorms coming, everyone knows. You don't need the Weather Channel, you need Facebook, a neighbor, or a guy at the gas station who just simply says, yep, gonna get nasty. And if the snow's even a little bit, well, guess what? We're not going anywhere today. But if it snows a lot, well, guess we better still go to work. Small towns operate on vibes, not forecast. So what's the real answer here? And let's get into it a little bit. We're going to mix this a little bit because what I'm kind of giving you is the feeling, the philosophy, the theory that it's more than just a population. But we do know that there is a little tie-in with population. So I went online and I said, well, I want to kind of investigate this a little bit. And I found a article from Science Direct. It says rural communities are socially distinctive due to their small size. Such places range from settlements called hamlets or villages of fewer than 500 people, where small towns are between 500. Now get ready. This was wide, between 500 to 50,000.
Say what?
That was mind blowing to me because I thought 50,000. Where I'm from, 50,000 is like a city, right? So it's like, oh my goodness. Well, the latter size, 50,000, of course, they went on to say, is often consisting of a small metro area. So we'll get into that a little bit. That's a definition that they gave. And here is the U.S. definition, by the way. A small town has a population of fewer than 5,000. They often feature a slower pace of life. A close-knit community. Absolutely. And usually they're not too far from a metro area, so they might live 30 minutes to an hour away from a larger population. The U.S. Census Bureau may extend this definition, by the way, to 10,000. So really, my friend Backroads and Backwater was not really far off when he said, in his opinion, a small town would be a population under 10,000. That kind of fits into the definition of what they would say here in terms of a U.S. definition from the U.S. Census Bureau. So, small town, less than 10,000. So you're under 10,000, and it goes to about 600. And then that term that I was using just a little bit, a village, typically smaller than a town, with a population between 200 to 600. So there, between 200 and 600, now you're really talking about a village. And then you get this other term, tiny town. And a tiny town is 200 or less. And I visited a tiny town. In fact, just last week, actually. I was in a small town, a tiny town called Farmer, South Dakota. Now, you can check out on my YouTube channel that video. And I actually went to a couple different tiny towns. But Farmer was really cool. It had a population of 15. I show up to the town. Of course, the school's not there anymore. It's been torn down. They have a sign in remembrance, sort of a memorial. They have all the names of all the students on the sign. I thought that was pretty cool. And they had the old school bell sitting on top of the sign. 1968 seemed to be the last class from Farmer, South Dakota that had graduated or left that school. And then the cool piece about this, and this is what I love about small towns and tiny towns, is that if you spend a little time and you even do just a little research, you're going to find out that some of these places have some neat characteristics about them. And the cool thing about Farmer, South Dakota is they have a historical landmark right there in town. And you can't miss it. It is a historical grotto. I think it's the St. Peter's Grotto. I'm going off the top of my head here. The St. Peter's Grotto in Farmer, South Dakota. Now, I did another video on another grotto in Iowa, in West Bend, which is the Grotto of Redemption. That is a that is big, huge grotto. It would take you a while to go through, but these places are spectacular. They're made of rock, and usually different pieces of rock from different places. This grotto in particular in Farmer, the priest who did this spent years making this grotto, and I would say it's just the size of a small room. But it is so cool. He used different rocks from the area out in the Black Hills. He specifically wanted rock from South Dakota in that area that he was going to use, and so he used all different types of rocks. And when you go into this grotto, like I said, it's smaller, but it's so cool. He made an opening up at the very top where the sunlight could peek in and hit the different statues that are inside that grotto. And so go check it out if you are in that area. It is not far off the main interstate. So if you are traveling east or west and you're not too far from Mitchell, South Dakota. You're not far from Farmer, actually. You can check it out on your GPS. Just put Farmer, South Dakota in, and it's not maybe 20 minutes off the interstate. So on I-90 east and west, close to Mitchell, go check that out and get off the beaten path a little bit and head up there and check it out. It is pretty cool. And if you like that sort of thing, there's a faith element to it. It's spiritual. It's great. And when I arrived, Farmer was very peaceful. It was in the middle of winter. We were hitting a cold spell. Of course, it's been in the negatives. So heat wave today, I think we're up in the 40s. But I tell you what, last week we were like negative 10. So it was cold, but it was so quiet. And I even said that in the video. Just took a minute just to listen. And you know what? I love that. I love that about small towns, and I love that about this tiny town as well. Now, not too far from this tiny town was something that I would call a small town. It really fit the definition. And now we were creeping up more to around that 600, 700 mark. And this was Alexandria, South Dakota. And Alexandria has a really cool history to it. It actually, back in the day, it made a bid for the capital of South Dakota, which I thought was an interesting history. Looking at the history of South Dakota, it was a territory of North Dakota and South Dakota, so the Dakota Territory. And the capital back in the day was actually in Yankton. So Yankton, South Dakota was where the capital was. However, at the time when they were trying to figure out where they were going to place the capital, they figured they might need something that's more central located. So when the Dakota Territory split up into two states, North Dakota and South Dakota, Bismarck became the capital of North Dakota. And hence now South Dakota was trying to figure out, where do we move our capital? We don't want it to be in the very southeast corner of the state. We really want it more central. And so all these different towns were making bids for the capital. And of course, we know today that Pierce, South Dakota won that bid, right, as the central location of its location now. And just a little neat fact about Pierre, 13,000, 15,000 population in Pierre, South Dakota. They are the second smallest capital in the United States, and I thought that was pretty fascinating. So here we go again. We're talking small, and we are typically in a beautiful place. If you love the Midwest, and you should love the Midwest because you should check it out, it's awesome. That's a beautiful area. The fact that Alexandria made a bid, they came in fourth, so they were pretty close, and now they are just a small town today. And that is another neat town. I went there as well, checked out different places in town, and even found some pretty cool places. They had a Catholic church, and they had an outdoor Station of the Cross. I walked through it, and again, I find these places very fascinating. So again, a small town. So recapping again what a small town is, we're really talking about a population that is under 10,000. So you're going from 10,000 to 600. That is what our definition of a small town is. A village, again, is going to be between 600 to 200. And then, of course, 200 or less is going to be a tiny town. And when you get down even lower, you start talking about ghost town status. And that is something that I talk about quite a bit. What's a ghost town? A ghost town really is 20% of its remaining population from its height. So if you had an 80% decline from the top of your population and now you're down 80%, according to Ghost Towns of Oklahoma by John Morris, he kind of wrote the definition of this. He said that from its peak, that would now consider you as a ghost town. Now, we always kind of think of ghost towns as zero population, and of course, we call those zero population ghost towns, right? So we have that as a status as well. So here you got all these statuses, but now here's my next question, especially when we start talking about economic development, and you start talking about, definitions as far as what the U.S. definition was talking about, like, oh, hey, what about those bigger towns, right? The ones that are between 10,000 to 50,000, what would you call those? And I have a term for those, and I kind of take this from the country music group Little Big Town. There it is. I call them Little Big Towns. So you're in the Midwest, and you're not quite a city, but you are a larger town. But yet you can go to some of these Midwest towns, quite frankly, and they are those populations between 15,000, 20, 30, 40,000, and they're not really a city, right? They're a bigger town, but they have that small town feel to them. All right, so I will use the town that of Spencer, Iowa. Perfect example. 11,000 people roughly in that town. Little big town, in my opinion. You know, it's bigger, but it has a small town feel. In fact, it even has the popular Clay County Fair, if you've ever been there.
Fabulous.
The world's best county fair. The Clay County Fair. So you have that small town vibe coming out of a town like that. So a little big town. And so there's my definition of those things. I'm thinking about some of the other towns that I've covered through the years and I will continue to cover. What about Sanborn, Iowa? Sanborn, Iowa is a small town. There's about 1,400 people in that town. They have a lot of stuff, cool stuff going on in that town. They have a really cool car museum. If you ever had a chance to go, I say car museum. They also have fire trucks. They have one of the largest fire truck collections in this building. And this is a cool museum, and this is in the Midwest. I would rank this museum as one of the tops, and it's in a town of 1,400 people. And you could go check. I made a video, by the way, of that. I think I'll even make a newer video just showing that museum, because that museum just it's like, wow, it's here. And then you get a little place in Illinois called Cave in Rock, Illinois. Cave in Rock, Illinois has a population of 220. Now, what's Cave in Rock popular for? Cave in Rock State Park. It's along the Ohio River. But Cave in Rock, the town, is right adjacent to it. It's right there. And if you want to do something cool and have a cool experience, you can actually take the ferry, because they don't have a bridge, by the way, going over the Ohio in this section. You have to take a ferry to go from Cave in Rock, Illinois, across the Ohio River to Kentucky. And when you go over there, by the way, be careful. There's Amish all over the countryside there. But just beautiful, beautiful stuff. And that's a neat experience. There we go. We have not quite a tiny town, right? Because that would have to be under 200. But another small town. But then what about a town like Kearney, Nebraska? Kearney, Nebraska, and out in the middle of Nebraska, 34,000 people. Now, some people say, well, that's a city. Well, in my opinion, that's a little big town. Still has that small town feel to it in a bigger town. Lots of stuff going on. Lots of history in Kearney, by the way. Fort Kearney is not too far away from there. You can go check out where that location really is. They have kind of like a park and outdoor museum there. They actually put a reconstruction of what the fort would have been. Dolby Town, which was the original town in that area for the fort, is now a ghost town. If you go see it and you're like, oh, there's a ghost town there, it's actually a cornfield. Sorry to disappoint you, but there is a sign, and it's about 2 or 3 miles away from where Fort Kearney. But that's cool. I mean, this is cool history stuff that I'm talking about. But that's Kearney, little big town. What about another one? I'm going to say up in the state of Wisconsin. Now I'm going to pause here, because somebody told me once, they're like, you have an accent. And I'm like, no, I don't. Yes, you do. When you say Wisconsin, see, I did it. It sounds like you're saying Westconsin.
Say what?
And of course, a lot of my friends from Wisconsin will make fun of me and say, hey, it's not Wisconsin, it's Wisconsin. And you're like, Wisconsin. Making fun of myself. Go up to the North Shore of Wisconsin. Go check that out sometime. Check out Superior Land, right? Lake Superior. There is a beautiful town, Bayfield, Wisconsin. It has a population of about 600. So again, you're talking small town. That is a cool town, by the way. It's right across from where Madeline Island is. You could go to that town. You can check out the town itself. Then you can take a ferry and go across and then visit Madeline Island. And there's a lot of cool stuff that you can see there as well. So just kind of giving you some ideas of small towns, tiny towns, little big towns. And so, of course, we have much more to that. So, okay, what's the real answer here and what I'm getting at here? A small town isn't really, even though I've talked about this for the last 10 minutes or so about population, it's not. It's about familiarity. I'll say that again. It's about familiarity. It's where you recognize most faces. It's where you wave at cars you don't fully recognize, you wave anyway. It's kind of like I'm in the middle of the countryside and I see Farmer Joe coming at me in his pickup truck. He lifts his finger, gives me a farmer wave. Guess what? I give him a farmer wave back. And the town slows down whether you want it to or not. A small town is where things don't change fast, and when they do, everybody talks about it. It's imperfect. It's nosy. It's occasionally frustrating, but it's also the kind of place where people show up. They show up for games. They show up for funerals, for fundraisers, and they show up for each other. I'm going to stop here for a second. I'm going to talk about that. They show up for each other. We're coming on about 2 years now where we had our major flood here in Spencer. It wasn't just Spencer. It hit places like Rock Valley, and it trickled down all the way. It hit Spencer. It hit Cherokee. It hit many different towns. And this flood was what they called the 500 flood. When you took aerial shots of Spencer, it was no longer a town. It was a lake, literally. And I remember my wife was gone. She was out of town, but I was home. And I heard a knock on the door, right? And all of a sudden my neighbors like, hey, we're all flooded across the street. And it's rising. It's probably going to cross the street. It's probably going to get in your home. Plug up your basement if you could. It didn't work. I had 18 inches of backup in my basement because the sewers were just full. Our whole town was devastated. It was a lake. But here's what I recognized living in a small town. Neighbors, people who maybe you didn't even know down the street would come together. They would help each other. They'd move stuff out of the basement. I was sitting in my home and this was like midnight and I heard a knock on the door and it was my neighbor across the street say, hey, we've got a couple pumps. Would you like us to pump your basement for you? Unbelievable. So town folk getting together, helping each other. And so that was very, very reminiscing of what I'm trying to say here is that to me is what a small town is. So if you've ever wondered whether you grew up in a small town, you already know the answer. And if you didn't, stick around because we'll explain it to you using casseroles, stoplights, and high school gyms. And yeah, we're probably talking about your town. This is Midwest Small Town.